Of all the possessions we hold dear, none is more intimate, more constant, and more influential than our own mind. It is the silent narrator of our lives, the architect of our realities, and the source of both our greatest triumphs and our most profound despairs. Yet, for something so fundamental to our very existence, we are given remarkably little instruction on how to manage it. We are taught to read, to write, to calculate, but we are never formally taught how to think. We are left to navigate the labyrinth of our own cognition with no map, no compass, and often, no clear destination. It is into this universal void that Darius Foroux steps with his compelling and pragmatic book, Think Straight. This is not a volume of abstract philosophical musings or complex psychological theories. It is a ground-level, actionable manual for taking back control of the one thing that truly determines the quality of our lives: our thinking. Foroux presents a simple but radical premise. We cannot always control what thoughts pop into our heads, but we have absolute power over which ones we entertain, which ones we follow down the rabbit hole, and which ones we simply let pass by like clouds in the sky. The ability to think straight is, therefore, not an innate gift bestowed upon a lucky few, but a cultivable skill, a disciplined practice akin to training a muscle. It is about shifting from being a passive passenger to the active pilot of your own mind. The central argument that Foroux builds his book upon is the crucial distinction between having thoughts and using thought. Most of us live in a state where we are possessed by our thoughts. We wake up with a mental chatter that sets the tone for the day. We react to external events with pre-programmed neural pathways, and we often find ourselves lost in spirals of worry about the future or regret about the past. In this state, we are not thinking. Our thinking is happening to us. Foroux argues that this passive relationship with our inner world is the root of anxiety, procrastination, indecision, and a profound sense of being stuck. To think straight is to break this cycle. It is to consciously decide to use your mind as a tool to solve problems, make decisions, and create value, rather than allowing it to be a source of noise and distraction. This shift in perspective is foundational. It moves thinking from something that is automatic and often detrimental to something that is intentional and purposeful. It's the difference between letting a garden grow wild, choked with weeds, and deliberately cultivating it to yield a specific, desired harvest. A significant portion of the book is dedicated to deconstructing the enemy of straight thinking, useless thinking. Foroux is remarkably practical in his definition. Useless thinking is any thought process that does not lead to a positive action, a clear decision, or a better understanding. This includes the familiar territories of worry, repetitively fretting about outcomes we cannot control, and rumination, endlessly replaying past mistakes or slights. But it also encompasses more subtle forms, like planning without execution, where we feel productive by endlessly brainstorming and organizing but never take the crucial step of doing. It includes complaining without seeking solutions and fantasizing about ideal futures without mapping out the practical steps to get there. This kind of thinking, Foroux asserts, is not just a waste of mental energy, it is actively harmful. It drains our focus, saps our motivation, and creates a fog of cognitive clutter that makes it impossible to see the path forward. The first and most critical step in thinking straight is to become a vigilant observer of your own mind, to catch yourself in the act of useless thinking, and to consciously choose to stop. This is not about suppressing thoughts, but about recognizing their lack of utility and withdrawing your attention from them. If useless thinking is the problem, then clarity is the antidote. Foroux places immense emphasis on the practice of gaining clarity as the cornerstone of effective thinking. Thinking straight is impossible in a state of mental chaos. The book offers several straightforward techniques to cut through the noise. One of the most powerful is the act of writing. Foroux advocates relentlessly for getting thoughts out of your head and onto paper or a digital document. The mind is a wonderful idea generator, but a terrible storage device. When we try to hold multiple thoughts, worries, and to-dos in our head, they jumble together, creating stress and confusion. The simple act of externalizing them, through journaling, making lists, or mind mapping, does two things. First, it frees up precious cognitive resources, creating mental space for actual thinking rather than just remembering. Second, it objectifies our thoughts. We can look at them from a distance, analyze them dispassionately, and see connections and priorities that were invisible when they were swirling in the subjective soup of our minds. Writing down a problem often reveals that it is less monolithic and more manageable than it seemed. Writing down our goals transforms them from vague wishes into concrete targets. This pursuit of clarity is inextricably linked to the practice of focus. In an age of relentless notifications and endless streams of information, our attention is the most valuable and most exploited commodity we have. Foroux argues that thinking straight requires monotasking. It is the deliberate decision to dedicate a block of time to thinking through one single thing. This could be a specific problem you're facing, a decision you need to make, or a project you're planning. The key is to eliminate all distractions and pour all your mental energy into that one topic. This deep, focused thought is where breakthroughs happen. It's where you move beyond the surface-level symptoms and get to the root cause of an issue. It's where you generate innovative solutions instead of recycling old, ineffective ones. Foroux suggests scheduling these thinking sessions into your day, treating them with the same importance as a meeting with your most important client. Because, in truth, you are your most important client. By cultivating this habit of focused attention, you train your mind to resist its natural tendency to wander, and you build the capacity for sustained, productive thought. Underpinning the entire process of thinking straight is a concept that Foroux returns to again and again: the sovereignty of choice. At every moment, we are choosing what to think about. This can feel untrue when we are caught in a storm of anxiety or anger, but Foroux insists it is a fundamental truth we must reclaim. We choose to continue worrying. We choose to replay an argument. We choose to scroll through social media instead of working on a meaningful task. Thinking straight is about reclaiming that power of choice. It is about pausing when a negative thought arises and asking a simple but powerful question: is this useful? If the answer is no, you make the conscious choice to redirect your attention to something that is. This is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice, a form of mental hygiene. It is the repeated act of choosing focus over distraction, solution over complaint, and action over deliberation. This emphasis on personal responsibility is both challenging and liberating. It removes the ability to blame our circumstances, our upbringing, or other people for our mental state. It places the reins firmly in our own hands, affirming that our inner world is our domain to command. Foroux extends this principle of straight thinking into the realm of decision-making and problem-solving. Most poor decisions, he contends, are not the result of a lack of intelligence, but a lack of clear thinking. We get bogged down by analysis paralysis, fear of making the wrong choice, or the desire for perfect information that never comes. The Think Straight method for decision-making is refreshingly straightforward. It goes back to the practice of writing. He suggests listing out the options, clearly defining the criteria for the decision, and then weighing the pros and cons in a visible, tangible format. This process forces vagueness into clarity. It separates emotion from logic and allows for a more dispassionate evaluation. Similarly, for problem-solving, the key is to move from a state of being overwhelmed by a problem to actively dissecting it. What is the core issue, stripped of all its emotional baggage? What are the potential causes? What are the possible solutions? And what are the likely outcomes of each? By applying a structured thinking process, we transform problems from intimidating monsters into a series of manageable puzzles. This approach fosters a sense of agency, replacing helplessness with proactive problem-solving. The book also wisely addresses the environmental and habitual factors that influence our thinking. Our minds do not operate in a vacuum. A cluttered physical space often reflects and reinforces a cluttered mental space. Constant exposure to negative news, gossip, and unproductive conversations pollutes our thinking. Foroux advocates for curating your information diet with the same care you would curate your food diet. This means being intentional about what you read, what you watch, and who you spend your time with. It means creating an environment, both physical and digital, that supports clarity and focus rather than fragmentation and distraction. Furthermore, he connects straight thinking to daily habits. A mind that is sleep-deprived, poorly nourished, and sedentary is a mind that is primed for useless thinking. Something as simple as getting adequate sleep, regular exercise, and taking short breaks throughout the workday can dramatically improve cognitive function and emotional resilience, making it easier to maintain the discipline of straight thinking. In its totality, Think Straight is a call to arms for a more intentional and empowered way of living. It is a book that demystifies the process of effective thinking and presents it as accessible, practical discipline. Its greatest strength lies in its utter lack of pretension. Foroux does not claim to have discovered a secret formula or to possess extraordinary intellectual powers. He presents himself as an ordinary person who struggled with the same mental clutter and indecision that plague most of us, and who, through research and experimentation, developed a system that works. The language is simple, direct, and free of jargon. The concepts are illustrated with relatable examples from everyday life and business, making the book applicable to a wide audience, from students and entrepreneurs to artists and corporate employees. A potential critique of the book could be that its advice is almost too simple. The solutions, notice your thoughts, write them down, focus on one thing, can seem deceptively basic when compared to the complex, tangled nature of our psychological struggles. However, this is precisely the point Foroux is making. The solution is not complex. The discipline to consistently apply it is. Thinking straight is not about a single, monumental shift, but about the cumulative power of small, daily choices. It is a practice, like meditation or physical fitness, that requires consistency and effort. The book is a guide, a coach, and a constant reminder that the quality of our lives is inextricably linked to the quality of our thoughts. It empowers the reader with the profound realization that while we may not be able to control the world around us, we can, with practice and perseverance, learn to control the world within us. In the end, Think Straight is more than a book about thinking. It is a philosophy for a more purposeful, productive, and peaceful life. It reminds us that in the relentless noise of the modern world, the ultimate act of rebellion and the surest path to success and satisfaction is to cultivate the quiet, powerful clarity of a mind that is truly under our own command.